was my very first session with Bruce. I think Chuck and Joe had either a Monday or a Friday, or I don't know what day we had, but we were assigned a different day to work out with Bruce, to train with Bruce. This is the truth. Our first session was the only physical training we did other than Bruce teaching me some Chinese katas, which he then promoted me. I have a certificate into Bruce Lee's system, and I don't know that Chuck and Joe have one. I don't know if they do or not. But Bruce Lee promoted me into his system. I have a certificate till today from him. So, but after that first session, we never did anything physical. Now, let me explain the first session. I was never intimidated by anybody, whether they were 6'5" and 250 or 130 pounds at 5'7". Never intimidated. So our first session, and my ego is so big that my pride is so vast that I won't let anybody show me up. So in our first session, it started like this. We went in the garage. He had a big, heavy bag hanging. And he said, okay, Mike, for the first session, this is what we're going to do. Now, I understand, Bruce. Why? Because I was a teacher also. Every teacher has certain pet techniques that they do, and they demonstrate on their students. First of all, the student is petrified to even stand there with their hands down, not knowing how the guy's going to slap you upside your head at any time for no reason at all, just to let you remember who's the teacher. So there's a little ploys and tactics that black belts use in selecting certain people to demonstrate on in their classes if they want to make a point, where the person has no option but to take a beating. This is the truth. So in this particular exercise, he said, oh, on this one, can you stand behind this bag and just put your back just barely touching the bag. But I'm standing facing the garage wall away from Bruce, and Bruce is on the other side going to do a jump flying side kick. And I'm not going to know when he's jumping and kicking. So I'm already knowing, like, okay. So the whole first session was everything about what Bruce can do and how he can intimidate. And he's going to show me his favorite techniques, the things that he always demonstrates and shows off to other people, which allows him to be superior in every instance. I understand the game. So I stood there. He jumped, did a side kick, nearly knocked me through the back wall of the garage. I went back and said, wow. He said, what do you think? I said, that's pretty good. And he was disappointed. Like, is that it? I said, yeah, it was okay. So then he said, okay, let's do another one. And he said, I did this with Chuck and Joe. Now, when he said about Chuck, okay. But when he said about Joe, I said, well, let me think about this.
Joe Louis. Yeah. Yeah.
The exercise was to stand feet to feet. You know Indian wrestling?
Yeah.
Where you lock hands like this, and then you out each other, but your feet are like that. Well, he did that where the arm is fully extended like this, and the elbow is not allowed to bend. So it's not a bent, this like arm wrestling. It's a fully extended arm without a bent elbow. So he says, we'll do that. And, you know, when I say go, you try to put my arm down. I try to put yours down. I said, okay. So we stood out there. We hold our arms out. And he says, are you ready? I said, yeah. So he says, okay, go. So we struggled a little bit, and I put him down. Well, right away, he said, you cheated. I said, what? He said, you cheated. I said, how did I cheat? You bent your elbow. I said, no, Bruce, I didn't bend my elbow. He said, you did. I said, okay, you want to do it again? He said, yeah. So we did it again. So when I had my arm extended like that, I tapped my elbow underneath. I said, you mean this part has to be locked out? He said, yeah. I said, okay, is it okay if I hold it here like that so I don't bend my elbow? He said, yeah, okay. So he said, you ready? I said, yeah, go. So I put him down again. He said, you cheated again. I said, Bruce, I didn't bend my elbow. Honest, I didn't bend my elbow. He said, never mind about that. And he said, when I did it to Joe, I put Joe down all 3 times. I said, really? I don't believe that. Joe may have let you. Joe may have let you do that. But I don't think he would have put Joe down 3 times.
Joe Louis, right? Yeah.
So from that day on, then a situation happened with Black Belt Magazine, Mito Orihara. Obviously, Mito became a very good friend of Bruce's, took lessons from him. And of course, all the magazines that were done through Black Belt Magazine because of Mito's relationship with Bruce. So Bruce came to me one day. I mean, not Bruce, Mito Ehara. I was at Black Belt Magazine, and he says, "Mike, can I talk to you about something?" I said, "Yeah." He said, I don't know how to tell you this, but Bruce is talking a little bit too much, that he is taking credit for you, Chuck and Joe, that he developed you, that you guys are champions because of his relationship with you. I said, "Oh, come on, Bruce wouldn't say that." He said, "No, he is. And he's bragging about it here at the magazine all the time. And people are like, hey, wait a minute. I think I know Mike before he was a champion, before Bruce. In fact, I won the international black belt the night that Bruce did the demonstration, 1964. And we went out to dinner, me, Bruce, Junri, and Ed Parker, for Chinese dinner as a celebration of my winning the international that first year. So I said, "Oh, Mito, come on, Bruce wouldn't dare say something like that." And he says, "No, but he's saying it too much now. And I don't know how to tell him, Bruce, maybe you should not go around saying that it's because of you that these guys are champions." So I was doing a movie with him called The Wrecking Crew, and we were on location at Idlewild, California, and we were rooming together. And there was something Bruce did that day that upset me. And so I just figured, well, okay, I'll confront him when we go back to the room. So we're back in the room together and getting ready to go to sleep. And I said, "Bruce, can I ask you something?" He said, "Yeah." I said, I'm just asking you, Bruce, so don't be upset. I heard from somebody quite reliable that you have been saying that the reason I'm as good as I am and Chuck Norris is as good as he is and Joe Louis was because of your association with us, that we're training with you is why we have become superior martial artists. And his first answer to me, I knew was a lie. He said, "Is that what you believe?" I said, "What?" He said, "Is that what you believe?" I said, "No, I'm asking you, did you say anything like that?" So he was so defensive, and I saw his facial expression, and I knew he wasn't being honest. He said, "Well, what can I do? If that's what you believe, I can't change your mind." I said, "No, I want you to tell me the truth. Did you say that? Or are you saying things like that?" He said, "Never mind, if that's what you believe." So that's it. From that moment on, our relationship just cooled off immediately.
Before, when you were fighting in tournaments, I had heard you were undefeated. Is that true? When you were fighting?
Yes, it's not true, of course. Let me explain it. In fact, I wrote something